Well, today we have an exciting guest speaker. So, he probably needs no introduction, but Bill Reddy has been with a student of Bhante's and a member of this community, the temple community, since the beginning, right? You're one of those old timers, he calls on them. And Bill has done so many things to help Bhante Sujata, to help the temple. He's a wonderful artist. So he paints murals and wall things. He painted our clouds from a photograph, a little photograph, right, that Bhante had given you. He said, do it just like this. And he's gone to Sri Lanka and helped paint murals on the retreat center there. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I always mispronounce it. But in addition to that, Bill is just a wonderful person. He devotes himself to helping other people and he's a really great practitioner. And I know he has a strong practice. So he's going to give a talk today.
Thanks for that. Can you hear me now? Oh, yeah. All right. Oh, my gosh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Thanks, Bhikkhuni. But, man, that's kind of to live up to here. So, thank you for asking me to do the talk today. Bhikkhuni asked me about, maybe a month ago or so. And, of course, I'm always honored, but always apprehensive too. I mean, these are always hard. I don't ever consider these to be an easy thing to do, and I always give so much credit to the monks and the nuns when they have to give a Dharma talk. Me, it's like so far between. Maybe I don't have to prepare again for another year, but them, it's like a couple more days I've got to give another one. So, so thank you. And the one thing I have to say, when we listen to the monks and the nuns, I mean, everything is so much from the heart. And, I've done a few of these, and I've always hoped that, as I've gone along and the more I've given, that, mine come a little more from the heart, but, a little less from my ego. So I do have kind of a big ego. So, last November I turned 65. Not a big deal to me now. I don't think that much about it now, but, at the time it really was. And maybe it's not that big deal to anyone else, but, it's kind of like one of those milestones you reach. I guess if you're fortunate, you reach it. So I went into the Social Security office to apply for Medicare, which is, in and of itself, was a real weird kind of a feeling to do that. So, and as I was sitting there, I wasn't thinking, oh boy, now I get the senior discount at Dunkin' Donuts. That wasn't it. It was more kind of like this logical line of thinking where, I was sitting there thinking, wow, I'm in the Medicare office, and the Medicare building, and, except for a few notable exceptions, they only give Medicare to senior citizens. So holy cow, I'm a senior citizen. It's crazy. That was like a real weird thing to me. But, it's a fact. I'm 65. I'm a senior now. And the thing is I think in my life, I don't think I've really dealt that well with facts. I like living more in delusion. It's much easier, I think, It's I don't think I'm quite as delusional as I used to be, or either that or I'm just a little more aware of it now that I still am pretty delusional. So, but it just seemed to be easier for me to, live more like in dreams and hopes and, fears and, things like that, and not really even thinking about the present moment and not really being able to just live right then. It's nice to have some of these, the hopes and the dreams coming up, but, to be able to not be able to live in the moment, it seems kind of a travesty for us. Life goes so quickly. But I guess if you think about it, really the only true fact is the present moment. And so I guess a lot of us are delusional. Some of us more so than others, because so many of us seem to have such a hard time living in the moment itself. So, I noticed one thing about aging, and as people get older, and I'm sure you've all noticed it too, is, people tend to let go of things. And, they tend to give up a lot of the things they've collected throughout their lives. And there's something about that. I mean, for one, maybe it's practical, but on the other hand, maybe it's maybe cathartic, I guess. It's kind of releasing of things. It's an act of total release, because it's actually, I think it's easier to release, let go of like material objects and things like that than it really is of our preconceptions of life and our ideas of what life is and all these things that we've built up over the years. So I wanted to share something about letting go. And that was some years ago when I was taking some classes for volunteer, for hospice volunteer. So on the second day when we went in for training, we went into this room, and it was set up with a circle with a bunch of chairs around it, all of us that were taking the training. And in the middle we had like a little table. And on the table were there a bunch of boxes of Kleenex. And right away I'm thinking, oh no, what the heck is this going to be like? It reminded me of my old days of, old years of group therapy. So, but as we went through a lot of visualization of like the act of actual dying, and it was like almost like a hypnosis and everything too. So we did that. And then after that, we went through a exercise where I guess they called it letting go exercise. So you wrote down on slips of paper, I don't remember, from 1 to 10 or whatever, things that you really hold valuable to yourself. And so as we went around the room, we passed the ball around the room, and each time we would let go, we put a slip of paper in there, which was one of our less meaningful things, the things we could let go of the easiest. And so when we went around the room, and you think of like giving up your material objects and then actually letting go of people and you've loved and family members and all this. And then when you finally get down to the very end, it's like, holy cow, I have to let go of myself. It's like I have to say goodbye to myself, which was, and that was the part that was just, very, since we kind of were, but I just noticed that that's why there was a lot of Kleenexes and everything that was in the room. They came in handy. I tried not to cry at all, but, didn't totally work. So, I want to go back to talking about, living in the moment, and, what is it about that? What is it about that that's so difficult for us? And I've wondered this. I've asked myself these questions, for years. Is it that it's not as exciting as our fantasies and our the things we think about that can happen to us, or our great memories of the past and all that? Is that it, or is it fear? Is it that we're afraid of if we don't hold on to these things and we don't see these things, are we afraid that our life can be seen as like totally meaningless? Or is it the fact that the longer we go on into our practice and everything, that we really can't go back? We can't truly go back to that comfortable level that we lived at before. And I think that's kind of, you think that's kind of hard when you think about it, because you know that you've chosen a path to move forward, and you know that there's no real way of going back to that. So I wanted to share this little this little story. I guess it's a memory of mine, and I thought of it when I was coming up with this talk. And I was 18 years old, and I was going to school, and it was in an anthropology class. It was actually after an anthropology class, and there was a small group of us standing around, and we were just talking about, it must have been at the end of the semester or the end of finals week or whatever, and we were talking about our tests and how important our tests were and how we wanted to do so well, and oh my gosh, I've got this paper due and all this. So during this conversation, one of our friends just looks up and he says, and I have to tell you exactly how he said it because it would take away from it if he didn't. Yeah, it's all bullshit anyways. And when you're at that age, 18, I thought that was so funny. I thought, wow, that's it. I mean, he's really got it. He really knows it. So, but the funny thing is, say I'm 65, that was like 47 years ago. That line has come up to me in my life so many times. And I don't mean it to be just in a funny way, but I mean it like in the sense that when my life I felt like life was totally meaningless for me. I was very cynical and all of that. It made perfect sense. It's like, yeah, he was right. It really all is. It truly is. But also you could see it as when life isn't going so badly, that, it's not worth sweating the small stuff. It's really not that important anyways, in the scheme of things. But in my practice, I think I've gone beyond that. I've added to that. And to that I add, and yet it isn't. And it's kind of like, how do you take that balance of living on one hand, everything we do and things we do, sometimes it just seems like it's totally meaningless. It absolutely has no meaning at all to us. But on the other hand, everything we think, do, is absolutely important. It's so incredibly important for us. So it's kind of like living in that balance, and it's like that energy of living there, because that, you can look at it one way or the other, I guess. But and I was thinking of this thing when I was a kid. My mom would always say, make your bed. And I would say, why? It's always going to get messed up anyways. It was always that logic. But, you have that logic of thinking one way, and you can't see beyond that. So I think to be able to sit in that middle and to be able to see things like that and live with a real purpose, that's an incredible thing to be able to do. And it's like our Buddhist path here, where we talk about the middle way. And where we sit on one hand, we don't suppress, and on the other hand, we don't act out. And we're sitting somewhere right in the middle, holding on to this energy. And at times it's so uncomfortable. It's that energy built up, especially if it's anger or something. It's just so hard to just sit with that and not act on it, or not just try to totally suppress it and push it down, which takes a lot of energy anyways. So I think that's really something, that part of it. So I also wanted to share one thing to kind of wrap this up, or kind of put it together. I don't know if I am putting it together, but this is the thought that, through all my time here I've spent, and I've been here a long time in my practice, and I was thinking, one of the hardest things I've dealt with in here is one of the hindrances, which is doubt. And earlier on in my practice, it was doubt of the teachings, and doubt of the practice itself, and what's it really going to do for me. But more along the lines of, as I went along, it was more along the lines of doubt of my own capacity. Can I see these teachings really deeply? Can I see them deeper than I am right now? Can I go deeper into them? And sometimes I have to really look back in my past and just to kind of get a feel for where I was about years ago, because I think we can kind of look at, like, I guess the word mental landscape or psychologically where we are at, say 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You can kind of get a feel for what we were doing, how we were feeling at the time. And so with that, I would have to say, yeah, I have had the capacity. I do have the capacity to get to where from there to here. And so obviously I have the capacity to be able to see things a lot deeper than I really think I can. And the hard thing about all that is that there seems to be this constant shifting, and I'm just, I'm thinking of like how I see it in myself, just a little shift, and then like maybe a little deeper. Maybe you go a little deeper, because deeper seems to be the only word I can come up with. But it's a constant, it seems like. It seems like a never ending, just like it never really ends. I mean, I don't know what nirvana is or that, but it just seems that as far as seeing things deeply, it just seems to be like no ending to it. And try to tell this to somebody. I mean, you really can't. You really can't describe how that little shift happens in you and what you see in it, because it's so subtle and I don't really even know what it is myself at times. So the thing that's great about that, though, is that we have a place like this to come to. I mean, where else in your life can you really just kind of experience this? And if you told someone in here, people would pretty much get, what you're talking about. Yeah, I have this little shifting, and I'm going deeper in my practice, and and that's the beauty of having a sangha, because as much as I've thought in the past, when I've come here, I've thought that I can practice on my own. It's okay. I can practice on my own. I can do well on my own too. But that's missing something. That really is. It's to have actually a group of people that really kind of get what you're going through. I mean, maybe not in your life, but basically on a spiritual path. Everyone kind of gets where we're at. And that's why we're so fortunate to have sangha to come to. And that's about it for me. Thank you. Thank you so much.